Hi, my name is Stephanie Soto. I'm the Assistant Director of Testing and Academic Success in the Tutoring and Testing Center.
Hi, my name is Adriana. I'm one of the academic success coaches in the Tutoring and Testing Center.
And today we're here to talk about time management. So I think everyone has a good understanding about what time management is, but why do we strive for good time management? It enables us to work smarter, not harder. So you can get more done in less time with lower stress, and it can ultimately lead to academic success. So this is a great quote we like to start out with. Productivity is never an accident. It's always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. So that's really what we're going to focus here on. Intentionality allows you to be more effective in your time management. So first step to time management is determining your priorities. Understand your why. Why are things more important? Why are things driving you in a certain direction? So we highly recommend to write out both your short and your long-term goals and post them somewhere around your room. So when you need that motivation, you have it physically somewhere you can see. It's important to identify your priorities based on your values. So if you really value your education, that needs to be number one on your to-do list. But also we have other values in your family, values in your social life, and making sure that those fit on your schedule on a weekly basis are very important. And then sometimes your priorities are determined by really the deadlines or the exams that you have coming up on your schedule. And those really need to pull forward when you're setting your to-do list or setting your daily schedule. So when you are figuring out what you need to accomplish first on your to-do list, this is a really great tool to help you determine the order of how to tackle the items. So this is the time management matrix, and you'll basically work through it step 1, 2, 3, then 4 for your items on your to-do list. So the items that fall in quadrant number 1 are the items that are both urgent and important. So those are your deadline driven projects, exams coming up, things that you just really need to get out of the way. But it also includes those emergencies or unexpected things that pop up that you can't avoid that need to be completed. Then you have the items that fall within quadrant number 2, which you'll do the next list of items. And those are ones that are not urgent, but are still really important. So those might be studying for an exam, even though it's not this week, but it's next week. It's also getting enough sleep. Make sure that you're eating well. Make sure that you are talking with your family. All of those are really important, but maybe don't have a deadline. Then finally, the items that fall within quadrant number 3 are those that are urgent, but not necessarily important. So these could be some of the involvements that you're in, checking your email every once in a while, just things that you kind of need to get done, but they're not so important to you. And then finally, the things that fall within quadrant number 4 are the items that are not urgent and not important. So that will really be your escape activities, binging on Netflix, going on social media for a couple hours at a time, items that really you don't need to put before you complete any other items on your day. So we highly recommend to make a to-do list a habit. So you can write one daily at the beginning of the day, thinking ahead of what you need to accomplish, or maybe spending time each week to look ahead, see what's due, see what you want to accomplish, and writing out that to-do list. When you do have a major assignment or a major task, break it down actually on your to-do list. So instead of saying study for biology exam, you can say create flashcards for the exam, schedule a time with my study group, review the chapter, because each item is a different function. It requires different time. So breaking it down, you see everything that you need to accomplish, and it becomes more manageable to actually accomplish those items. We also recommend don't overload the list. So focus on what you can actually accomplish within a 24-hour period. So we still need to eat, we still need to sleep, we need to go to class. There's a lot of things that we need to fit in our day. So don't overwhelm your to-do list with everything you want to do. Think about what you actually can accomplish. And then prioritize your items. So either create a code, create different colors for what's important, what really needs to be done, or order it on your to-do list by order of operations, basically. Deadlines are a really great way to stay on track with everything. So we highly recommend to create your own mini deadlines that are smaller goals for yourself throughout the week. I know a lot of people tend to say when they procrastinate, they do really well, they stay busy, they're very productive. Though that's great, it can be overwhelming and it can have bad effects on our mental, physical health, on our academics. So we, instead of saying, you're going to wait till last minute, instead create mini deadlines for yourself throughout the week so that you stay moderately busy, but you're still motivated to complete the tasks that you need to complete. And you're better at devoting time in order to get those off your to-do list. That also promotes good stress because pressure can be a driving force, but having a bad amount of stress can actually discourage your retention and memory. Batching tasks is the act of grouping similar tasks together and doing them all at once, rather than switching between different functions of tasks or different things throughout your day. So the reason why we recommend this, it creates a more concentrated workflow. It can minimize distractions and procrastination and boost your productivity. And they've noticed when people are interrupted and have to switch their attention back and forth, it can take 50% longer to complete a task. So how do we batch tasks? First thing, you want to think of the function behind each task. So if you are leaving for the day, think of what are all the things that I need to do that are outside the house. So I wanted to go to the gym, I wanted to stop by a friend's house, I wanted to go to the grocery store. All of those items should be happening at once rather than driving back and forth. And it's the same thing for if you are reading, if you are on your computer, you don't want to switch between your phone, your computer, reading, phone, computer, reading. It just adds so much extra time that you don't really need to waste. So in order to be intentional when you are batching your tasks, you have to plan your day out. And when you're doing that, start thinking about when are your low areas of the day, low energy areas of the day. That would be a great time to batch your low value work. So if you notice you're really productive in the morning, that's the time when you should be focusing on those larger products or studying for exams, things that you really need to accomplish. And then finally, when you are sitting down to do your batch of tasks, make sure you're eliminating distractions. So when it's time to focus, that's all you're doing. You have your phone away, you turned off your TV, you're focusing on studying. When you're done with that, then you can go on to those items.
And a lot of times, in addition to just like creating deadlines for yourself, batching tasks, as well as creating to-do lists, is super important to consider a lot of the study techniques, especially when it comes to time management. Because for one, when we go throughout the semester, even the school year, we have a lot of different classes where we have to devote a certain amount of time to. And not only are we taking that into consideration, we have to take into consideration maybe some of our additional commitments, whether we are working at a part-time job, if we're involved in a student organization. So it's super important to start scheduling those study times throughout the week. So for example, as a graduate student, my schedule is very hectic. So I have a part-time job. I'm also involved in research and I'm applying for internships. So it's super important for me to learn how to do time management skills, right? So it's important to look at days a week where you start noticing some more flexibility. And then you want to identify, well, how much time do I want to devote to this particular class, whether it's psychology or chemistry? and how long would I like to study? And this is a case by case basis, right? So some people may tend to feel better about studying maybe an hour for one class, or studying 2 hours for a class and incorporate breaks. So it's super important to really be honest with yourself, as well as to determine how long you want to study and when you would like to study for those particular classes. But not only is that important, it's super important to take good notes, right? Especially if we want to review these notes for exams, quizzes, or even incorporate some of the notes that we're taking in class for projects. We want to make sure that we are writing as much as we can, or things that we are able to abbreviate in a way that is understandable to us. And a lot of times, whenever some students come in for academic success coaching, we tend to strategize possible ways to maximize their note-taking. So for example, for those who may be visual learners, maybe drawing out the diagram might be helpful for them, or those that are auditory learners, listening to recordings of lectures may be really helpful for them, or even watching a YouTube video where they're able to take and summarize their own notes in a way that's understandable for them. So we want to ensure that you're continuously taking good notes throughout your classes, because it makes it super easy and understandable as you start preparing for your exams. And Stephanie mentioned it earlier, but also minimizing distractions while studying, right? So unfortunately, I fall victim to this at times, but you don't want to look through your phone, go on social media and things like that while you're studying, because you're not actively studying, right? So you want to ensure that you want to remove your phone, put it on do not disturb if you have to, but also find apps that can block some of those social media channels and things like that, in order for you to just focus on what you have to study at that point in time. And a lot of times, what can be helpful, especially if you start noticing that it's more difficult for you to study by yourself because you tend to get more distracted, we also recommend studying in groups. And the reason why is that if we do study with people that we are familiar with, or even some of our colleagues in our classes, we're able to learn not only from them, but it really helps us get more familiar and comfortable with the material. So for example, I remember when I was taking this really difficult class, psychopharmacology, where you have to learn about like the brand names, generic brand names, and then the dosages for different types of antidepressants, whatever it may be. And I learned that studying in a group was going to help me pass that class. So I would literally study with my friends and colleagues each and every week, it seemed like in the Santas for this class. And that was very helpful, because not only did they hold me accountable to actually studying and understanding the material, but I found it to be easier just talking out with somebody else to make sure that if I had to review something, I was able to review that more in details with them. And this kind of ties into the next point regarding turning your review time into text preparation. So essentially what we recommend a lot of students to do is that if you are taking your notes, you want to quiz yourself. And this actually helps when it comes to just retrieving that information faster as soon as you start taking the exam. So some strategies may be covering the answer and then uncovering it until you get it right, or trying to summarize it out loud what you learned from the material as well. And there's also some good websites where you're able to find like short quizzes. I know Quizlet has one, even Khan Academy has certain materials for different subjects where you're able to test yourself. So it's super important to do this at least a week or 2 weeks before, depending on your schedule, this type of technique, in order for you to feel more prepared as you take your exam or quiz. And finally, one thing that we also recommend students to do, and this doesn't have to also be when it comes to just studying in general, but just when you're doing an assignment, to really break down those large assignments into smaller ones. And the reason why we say this is that you increase your productivity by doing that, where you are setting aside a certain amount of time a week, if not 2 days a week, to actually write down smaller chunks, or even studying a smaller chunk of information. But also you start noticing that you're not as overwhelmed or stressed if you start breaking down that information rather than cramming all in the day before the exam. So we highly recommend that. And while we talk a lot about just studying in general and also just having a hectic schedule, it is very imperative that we practice good self-care and also having compassion for ourselves, right? Because I know there may be some days where we may start just overcommitting ourselves or scheduling all these different activities that we would like to get done in a day. And we just don't have that much time. We have time. We have 24 hours in a day. We have 5 days a week, if not the weekends at times, to get all that stuff done. So you want to make sure that you're very flexible and recognizing what works best for you. We don't recommend cramming everything in within a day. You're going to get burnt out by doing that. I've been there. I know a lot of my friends and colleagues have been there as well when it comes to overcommitting ourselves on our to-do list. So you want to make sure that you're incorporating at least a day a week or 2 days a week of practicing good self-care activities so you can reduce that burnout. And it's super important, in addition to just having compassion for ourselves, to really be realistic as well. So we want to really identify, well, am I really doing a lot of things that align with my own priorities? Or am I just overcommitting myself and just saying yes to a lot of different responsibilities or even opportunities that are there? So we always tell a lot of students that come in for academic success coaching to really learn how to say no and identify what is going to help us really achieve our personal and academic growth. And when you say no to things, it really helps prioritize your time. And I can remember back in undergrad and even now as a graduate student, where I used to say yes to everything. So if my friends ask me, well, hey, can you do this research thing? Or if my mentor asked me, well, do you want to do whatever it may be, like this volunteering opportunity, in addition to writing a paper, I would always say yes and everything. And then I would wonder why by the end of the semester I'm so burnt out or just very exhausted. So please say no in order to prioritize your time, but also saying no really increases your self-control as well as setting clear goals with yourself when you're prioritizing. And this goes back to a lot of just really identifying why you're doing it and really trying to figure out, well, is this opportunity going to help me reach my own personal goals, or am I sacrificing things that I could have been doing for myself? And unfortunately, this tends to happen a lot, especially when it comes to the opportunity cost or fear of missing out, where we are asking ourselves, well, if we take this opportunity, are we losing out on another one? Or if we just don't say yes to it, what am I going to lose as a result of that? So if you start noticing that you're struggling with that, because I know I've done that numerous times throughout my undergraduate and graduate career, you want to ask yourself some following questions. So, what does my schedule look like without this commitment? I always ask myself that all the time. But if you want to be very blunt and morbid, if I am on my deathbed, would I regret not taking that opportunity? And another technique to kind of help too, especially when it comes to just trying to figure out if this opportunity is going to be advantageous for you or not, really just write down some pros and cons. And of course, if there's more cons than pros, do not take the opportunity, whatever it may be. So as we talk a lot about just saying no, self-care and having self-compassion, there are 8 different facets, and this is not a very exhaustive list, but typically there's 8 facets of self-care. So some people may tend to incorporate a lot of, for example, physical self-care activities, whether they're getting a good amount of sleep, which is super important, eating healthy food, or we start noticing some people may do personal things, such as really reflecting on who they are as a person, doing hobbies that they really like to do. Like I know for myself, I love just walking. Sometimes I like going out to a park or even going to the beach and really relaxing because it really helps me not only decompress, but I start noticing I feel more motivated and productive as soon as I do that. So we encourage you all as you start noticing well, you have flexibility in your schedule and you are able to do some of these self-care activities, really identify what works best for you and what you like to do and incorporate this throughout the week. So we have some more resources as well when it comes to time management to really help you maximize your time, make you feel more organized, as well as managing your time effectively. So we encourage a lot of students to use a time tracking tool. And the reason why is because it really helps you record the amount of time that you're spending on particular tasks. And when we say particular tasks, it can be anything like classes, but even it can incorporate just going to the gym or having a lot of downtime. And the reason why we encourage you all to use a time tracking tool is because you can modify whether you are spending too much time doing the downtime or just socializing, or if you're spending way too much time studying throughout the day. So some things that we recommend is either journaling. I know I tend to do that a lot because it really gives me like a clear, objective picture of how I'm divvying up my time. But you can also use a Excel sheet. You can use an Outlook, a Google Calendar, as well as Trello and some other free apps. But also there's some really cool apps that we found as well when it comes to productivity and really staying focused as you're studying. So there's social media blockers like Focus Me, Flipped, as well as Forest. So we highly recommend you all to kind of check those out too. So if you do need help, especially when it comes to just identifying or increasing your studying techniques as well as time management skills, please do not hesitate to schedule an appointment with us. We do meet with students one-on-one for about 50 to 60 minutes. And we do have 5 amazing academic success coaches. So please schedule one based off your schedule. I know for me, for example, I'm available Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. But we do have some other students that are available other times as well. And essentially, when we do these sessions one-on-one, we're really making sure that we're tailoring based off of what is going to be helpful for you, your own needs, as well as some of the goals that you may have academically, personally, and professionally. So just to stay up to date with us as well as meeting our staff, we have social media. So please stay tuned on our Instagram. We're actively posting information there. You can also find some past recordings and workshops as well on our YouTube. And if you want to schedule an appointment with an academic success coach, you're going to go through Navigate on sharplink.nova.edu, and you want to click on Schedule an Appointment. So thank you all so much for watching our presentation.